is positional asphyxia with environmental suffocation. And the manner of death was I classified as homicide.
Now, when you perform your autopsy, what information do you have at the time that you begin that examination?
It's incredibly variable. I can have a lot of background information. Sometimes I have none. It just depends on the particular case.
In this case, what information were you provided at the time?
So the information I had was that the decedent was with his girlfriend, and at some point in time in the night, he got into a suitcase, which was then zippered shut. At another point at time, I believe she went to bed, and then the next morning discovered that he was still in the suitcase. And I think that was in about an 11-hour time frame from the information that I had.
You mentioned asphyxia. Can you explain for us what asphyxia is?
Sure. So asphyxia is a very general term. It would be kind of like saying, I drive a car. Right? That's very generic. And we know that there are many different types of cars out there, right? So asphyxia simply means lack of oxygen or inadequate oxygen for an individual. And there are different categories of asphyxia. So you can have suffocation, which just means that there's obstruction of the airways. So that could be smothering, that could be somebody choking on a piece of food, or maybe just being in an environment where there's not enough oxygen in the air to sustain that individual. There's a category called strangulation. That would be compression of the neck, either blood vessels or airways. There's another category called mechanical asphyxia. That can be when the body is in an unusual or abnormal position where the actual mechanics of breathing can't occur. So that can be the position of the body, or it can be like, let's say if a heavy object fell on somebody and you simply can't breathe because of the weight of that object. That would be a mechanical asphyxia. And then there's drowning. That's a different type of asphyxia. And there are a couple of other categories as well that are much less common.
I finally found shorts that enhance my.
Is there a most common type of asphyxia?
The most common would be ligature compression of the neck. So that would be like an event, a hanging. That would be the most common that we would see.
You also mentioned environmental suffocation. Could you tell us a little bit more what that means in more layman's terms?
So that just means that there's not enough oxygen in the environment that the person is in. You could think of somebody who's in an enclosed space where there's a fixed amount of oxygen. So as that oxygen is, as that person is breathing, they're using up all the oxygen. And once it's gone, there's no oxygen left. Or you could think of maybe people who are, climbing Mount Everest. There's not as much oxygen up there, and that's why they have oxygen tanks. So it just means that the amount of oxygen available in the air around that person is not enough to sustain them.
In this case, what can you tell us about how long Jorge Torres was in that suitcase?
There's not a really good way for me to give you a time frame as to how long he was in that suitcase. Again, because there was both the component of positional asphyxia, being in an unusual position for a period of time, and then also the environmental suffocation component. Because within that suitcase, certainly there's going to be oxygen, but it's not going to be the same as if you were sitting in a room like this. And because there are those multiple components happening at the same time, there's not a really good way to estimate or say with scientific certainty, oh, he was in for X amount of time. There's really not a good way to do that.
How about, is there any good way to approximate or determine the time that Jorge Torres died?
There's not a good way to do that either, again, because there are so many different components at play at the time of his death. Sitting in a normal room like this, the percentage of oxygen that's available is about 20 to 21%. If that were to drop to 10 to 15%, the person can be impaired with judgment, they can be impaired with activity. Once that percentage drops between 8 to 10%, most people will lose consciousness. And at a percentage of 8% oxygen or less, that's when we would expect the death to occur. And so again, there's not a really good way to measure the amount of oxygen that would have been available to him in that suitcase, in addition to the fact that he was in an unusual position.
What position were you able to determine he was in that suitcase?
I wasn't able to see what position he was in. By the time that our medical legal death investigators were at the scene, he was already removed from the suitcase. Based on some of the findings, I favor that he was most likely in like a fetal type position. So knees flexed, arms flexed, and the head most likely flexed forward. But again, that's from my findings. I didn't see what position he was in.
What side of his body would he be resting on in this fetal position?
That most likely his left side. However, I do say the caveat that some of the findings are dependent on time, meaning that, if that suitcase had been moved or flipped over, that could be different than what I'm seeing at the time of my examination.
Tell us, what is skin slippage?
So after death, the body goes through a series of progressive changes. And one of those changes is skin slippage. And what that does is it tells me that that person is a little bit further away from the actual time of death. So it's not something that's going to occur immediately after death for most people. It's something that would occur a little bit later on in that process of changes that happens after death.
And tell us, what is rigor mortis?
So rigor mortis is also called the postmortem stiffening of muscles. And again, that's one of the changes that occurs after death. Most of the times that will occur before we see skin slippage. But these changes are very variable from individual to individual. And it also depends a lot on the environment the person is in. So for example, those changes that we're going to see happen more quickly in a warm environment. If somebody who maybe is engaged in a physical or violent struggle, those changes are going to occur more rapidly. And then it also depends on the person themselves, their relative size, their relative health. Those things can all impact the changes that we see after death.
How does skin slippage and rigor mortis inform your findings about how long Jorge Torres was likely in that suitcase?
So again, the time frame that I had was about 11 hours, just from the last time that he was known to be in the suitcase versus the time that he was found. So I'm basing it off of that. So about an 11-hour time period. Well, when I did my examination, the rigor mortis was already dissipating or leaving. Also, there was some skin slippage. And so if he had not been in the suitcase, if he had been out of the suitcase, I would not expect that advanced amount of change. It's compatible with him being in that suitcase for a longer period of time. It would have been warmer. And also if he had been, struggling to get himself out, engaging that physical activity, those are things that are going to accelerate or speed up that process. So my findings at the time of the examination are compatible with that 11-hour time period or, somewhere around there.
Additionally, did you note any injuries to the body of Jorge Torres?
Yes.
These injuries that you noted to the body of Jorge Torres, did you document them on what's called a body chart?
Yes, the diagram on a body chart, and we also take pictures as I'm going through my examination.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been previously marked for identification and shown to defense as states R?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as states R. You recognize this document?
Yes.
And can you tell us, what is this document?
That's a copy of my body diagram.
Sorry,
Oh, it's a copy of my body diagram.
and does this fairly and accurately represent the diagram that you created in this case for Jorge Torres?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as states R into evidence. No objection.
What was pre-marked as states R will be received into evidence without objection as states 12.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
Yes, sir.
So, ma'am, on this body chart, can you describe for us and point out what was the first blunt impact injury that you identified?
So there were some blunt impact injuries to his head. I don't think it's on this one, but there were some blunt impact injuries to his head right up here around the eye and on the mouth area.
And then, did you notate any injuries to his hand?
Yes, so there were some ecchymoses, or you can think of that as like a large kind of bruise on both hands.
What other blunt impact injuries did you identify?
So there was a series of ecchymoses on the left side of the back, right about here.
And any others?
There were some on the forearms as well.
And you use this body chart, you say, in addition to photographing the injuries that you document, correct?
Yes.
part of your examination,
Brooklyn.
on the body chart itself, do you document the height and weight of the person as well?
Yes.
And what was the height of Mr. Torres?
So, yeah, so technically for us, it's length. Height is a measurement that's taken while someone is standing. So his length was 62 inches and his weight was 103 pounds.
In regards to these blunt impact injuries,
He was a very small, tiny man. This woman is evil. She's a bully. Yeah, she's a bully. Yep. Resume.
how is it that you come to the conclusion that these injuries were the result of blunt impacts?
So these are typical wounding patterns for blunt force trauma. And when I say blunt force trauma, that can mean something striking a part of the body, or on the other hand, it can be the body striking an object. And that causes injury to the skin, to the soft tissue, and sometimes the deeper tissues, depending on how severe or how strong that blunt force trauma is.
Are these injuries consistent with a person being struck with a baseball bat?
They could be, yes.
Are they consistent with a person being pushed down a flight of stairs?
They could be, yes.
Can you say whether or not these injuries occurred while George Torres was in the suitcase?
No.
Why is it that you cannot say that?
So all of these injuries seem to have occurred around the same time, meaning that they're relatively acute or new. They're not things that are healing or something that happened last week. So they all occurred around the same time. But you can't really look at a bruise or a contusion and say, oh, that happened 2 hours ago. There's not a good way to do that.
Are these injuries consistent with them occurring while he was inside the suitcase?
Yes, they could be.
As part of your examination, do you also check the toxicology of George Torres?
Yes.
And is that something that's pretty standard in any autopsy?
Yes.
And what were the toxicology results for George Torres?
So there was a blood alcohol level of 0.139 milligrams per deciliter, and there was also caffeine and nicotine detected as well.
That level of alcohol, is that over the legal limit in the state of Florida to drive?
Sure. So for driving under the influence, that's a 0.08. So that is higher than that.
What does that alcohol level at the time of your autopsy tell you about George Torres's level of impairment 11 hours earlier?
So I don't necessarily know that it was 11 hours earlier, but it was at the time of death, at or near the time of his death. That's what the blood alcohol level was. So at that level, everyone reacts a little bit differently to alcohol. And some of it has to do with whether or not somebody is accustomed to drinking alcohol or if they've never had alcohol. So you can develop tolerance. But at that level, there's going to be impairment of judgment. There can be impairment of motor skills. There can be slurring of words. Something that's called disinhibition or lack of inhibition. And again, it's really variable from person to person, but those are the common things that you would see at that level.
Would that level of alcohol impair the ability to problem solve?
It can, yes.
You also stated earlier that you document your autopsy findings also photographically, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been marked for identification as stage Q and been shown to defense?
May.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as stage Q. Did you take a look at this composite of photographs to yourself and then look up once you're finished? Ma'am, do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
Are these photographs a portion of the photographs that you took in your autopsy of George Torres in this case?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent how he appeared and how his injuries appeared to you at the time you performed your autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as State's Q into evidence.
No objection. What was pre-marked as State's Q will be received into evidence without objection as State's 13.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may do so.
Ma'am, I'm showing you photo 1 from State's composite. Tell us, what is this a photo of?
So this is an identification photo that's basically just showing from about the level of the collarbones up.
And this is George Torres.
Yes.
Did you note any signs of injury in this photo?
Yes. So there's some ecchymosis around the left eye. This picture, it's a little bit hard to see, but I think there's another one coming up. There's also an area of ecchymosis up here on the left side of the forehead with also some swelling associated with that. The lips have some contusions and small lacerations. And then on the left shoulder here, you can see a little bit of some ecchymosis here, or again, ecchymosis are kind of like big bruises.
Turning to photo 2 from State's composite. What are we looking at in this photograph?
So this is his right arm near the elbow. And right here, you can see this kind of darker area. So this looks similar to an abrasion, but it's actually, it's what's called drying artifact. And again, this is one of the reasons that I think that he was in that suitcase for a little bit longer. Most likely that was a pressure point where part of that suitcase was resting on his elbow in that area. And then after death, that tissue dries out, and that's the discoloration that you're seeing there.
Turning to State's 3 from the composite.
So here you can see a little bit better. I don't know if you can get a feeling for this, but this area is what we call edema or swelling. So this whole area is edema. It's a little bit discolored, so ecchymosis. And then again, really at the corner of the eye here, you can see that darker discoloration. And so those are injuries from blunt force trauma.
State's 4 from the composite.
So this is the left shoulder and arm. So again, you can see this kind of red to purple area. So this is all ecchymosis, and then a couple of linear abrasions or scratches.
State's 5 from the composite.
This is the same area, just a little bit closer up. So you can see this whole area of ecchymosis. It's a little bit variegated, differential in color, but again, that's all blunt force trauma.
And what part of the body is this we're looking at?
This is the left shoulder.
State's 6 from the composite.
That's the same area, but in this picture, we have a scale or the ruler.
And why do we use scales and rulers?
That's just to give an idea of how big the area is or how large the injury is.
State's 7 from the composite.
So this is the left forearm and hand. And you can see the area right here that's a little bit red to purple. And then also right here on the left hand, right here and here. Those are all areas of ecchymosis, again, blunt force trauma.
State's 8 from the composite.
Again, the left arm. Just from a little bit of a different angle, so you can see, and a little bit of the elbow too here, but you can see all these areas, ecchymosis.
State's 9 from the composite.
And now looking at the left hand, a little bit closer up, so you can kind of see a little bit better these areas of ecchymosis.
State's 10 from the composite.
And again, the left hand just closer up.
States 11 from the composite.
So now we're looking at the back, and you can see that there are these linear abrasions in the mid-back.
Are those scratch marks for?
They could be scratch marks. They could also be blunt impact, more of just a straight-on blunt impact, especially being in that suitcase if there are objects in there.
What is the discoloration that we see around his shoulders and some other spots on his back?
Sure. So you're talking about this area?
Yes.
So that's called livor mortis or lividity, and that's one of the changes that we see again after death. And basically what that is it's postmortem after death, settling of blood in the blood vessels. And so it's dependent on gravity and it's dependent on the person's position. So what I mean by that is we're seeing it on his back because after the time of death, at some point in time, he was more positioned.
Zach, I can't wait. When she's on the stand and when she gonna stand, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear what she have to say. And I also can't wait to hear when they tell her guilty, the expression on her face. Woo, it's gonna be a moment, everyone. It's gonna be a moment. All right, I'm gonna resume now. Make sure everybody hit the like and thank you for being here and thank you for engaging. Resume.
On his back. And the areas that are lighter, that's because for a couple of reasons. It could be the position of the body, meaning that it's not in the gravity dependent position, or there could be something pressing on it. So either one of those.
States 12 from the composite.
So those are those linear abrasions just shown a little bit closer up.
States 13 from the composite.
And the same, but with a scale.
States 14 from the composite.
So now you're seeing the left side of his back and also the back of his left arm. And you can see these areas here of ecchymoses, and these are a lot darker than some of the others that we've seen. One of the things that I did is I looked underneath the skin in these areas because they're so much darker and so much more dense. So I wanted to see if there was injury of the deeper tissues. So these areas are associated with hemorrhage or bleeding into the skeletal muscle, so the deeper tissues. And so that's just indicating more force applied to that area.
And when you did your internal exam, did you examine this area and did that inform your findings?
Yes.
States 15 from the composite.
And that's showing those areas a little bit closer up. So you can see that they're much more dense. There's at least 3 distinct areas here. There could be more than 3 impacts, but there's at least 3 separate ones that can be seen.
States 16 from the composite.
This is just showing the upper back and the back of the neck. We've got a linear abrasion right here on the back of the neck, and these were the ones shown in earlier pictures.
And states 17 from the composite.
And this is just showing the same area of the back and the back of the arm, but just at a different angle.
So we've discussed and seen evidence of many different injuries. In total, how many blunt impact injuries did you identify?
I can't give you an exact number. Again, you can have multiple impacts in a very close area, so it can be hard to discern each one. They can overlay each other, or they can be so close to each other. But at least 5 to 6, most likely more than that.
And when you were going through your body chart as well, and I guess we also saw some of it photographically, you also mentioned impact to the left side of the head.
Yes.
And I believe that was subgaleal.
Subgaleal. So kind of similar to what I was describing on the back. I looked at the underside of the scalp. And so in those areas on the left side of his forehead where there was the edema, when we reflect or we fold the scalp over, there was hemorrhage or bleeding that went through the entire scalp and was deposited on the skull. There was no associated skull fracture and there was no bleeding inside of the skull, but it was all in the scalp and deposited on the outer surface of the skull.
What does that sound like to y'all, ladies and gentlemen? What does it sound like? Put in the chat. This woman is pure evil. And it really bothers me how, she's walking around this courtroom just smiling. Every minute you turn around, she's smiling. She thinks this is, but she wasn't really smiling too much today because, with the 911 call and all of that. Yeah, and she had to watch an interrogation. She wasn't smiling off of that one. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a little music for just a quick second because I have to change over to the next person on the stand, the next expert. So we're going to listen to that. Okay, so give me a second to change it. Okay, just give me a second. I'm changing over to the second one. I have to find the spot because we don't want to sit here and watch all the other stuff. We're just here for the clips. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, we're gonna get to the second one. Yes. Perfect. Found it. Alrighty now. Okay, now we're gonna get into the next expert that's coming on the stand. All right, if I'm correct, this one is the digital expert. If I'm correct, I might be wrong, whatever. But it'll, I'll put everything in the timestamps. All right, let's get it, ladies and gentlemen. Resume.
I do.
Ma'am, good morning. Could you please take a seat and state and spell your name for the record for us?
My name is Meredith McCaskill, and it's spelled MEredithMcCaskill.
Thank you. Mr. J. Manquire.
Thank you. Where do you work, ma'am?
I am employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Orlando Regional Operations Center.
And is that also called FDLE?
Yes, it is.
What do you do for FDLE?
I am a senior crime laboratory analyst in the biology DNA section.
What is your educational background? We'll get into training and experience as well, but what's your educational background that allows you to do that job?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences from Clemson University and a Master of Science in Biomedical Forensic Science from the Boston University School of Medicine.
And when did you first start working for FDLE?
I started at FDLE in April of 2011.
Did you have any prior work experience as a forensic examiner of blood or biological or DNA evidence?
No, I did not.
So for the last 13 years, your experience has been with the FDLE.
Yes, that's correct.
And do you have any sort of in-house training and then continuing education that goes on as an employee at FDLE?
Yes. So when you become a crime laboratory analyst, you have to successfully complete a training program. This training program takes about 1.5 to 2 years. It covers all of our policies and procedures and manuals, reading textbooks and scientific articles, and performing a lot of in-house testing and training under the supervision of a qualified analyst. There's also written and oral examinations, and you have to successfully complete every part of that in order to work cases as a crime laboratory analyst. And then every year we have continuing education. So that's education that we need to do in order to stay current with new trends and technologies in the field.
Does the lab itself enjoy any accreditations, and what process, if so, does it go through to get them?
Yes, FDLE is accredited by an organization called ANAB. It's the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board. So we've been accredited for, I believe, over 30 years. It's a process where every 4 years they send people to come and inspect our lab, make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing according to our policies and procedures. And then we're also following national standards that have been set down. That's every 4 years. It's very in-depth. And then we have additional kind of like spot checks every year just to make sure that we are maintaining everything that we are supposed to be doing.
Have you ever given testimony in court about your opinion about serology analysis or DNA analysis?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 35 to 40 times.
Have you ever not been allowed to give opinion testimony in those areas?
No, I have not.
Can you tell us about the place, particularly within FDLE? Tell us about your workspace and what personal protection equipment you may wear when you're doing DNA analysis.
Yes. So in my workspace, I have what I call a clean side, which is where I keep all of my paperwork. And then I have my other side, which is used for actual screening of evidence items. So this is a surface where I can clean it with a detergent. I clean all of the instruments that I'm using. So scissors, markers to take notes, anything like that is cleaned with a detergent, both before I start and after I finish. And it's cleaned and maintained in between every item of evidence. So only one item of evidence is open at a time, and this is to minimize any potential contamination. So DNA from one item getting into DNA from a second item. I also wear what is called personal protective equipment. This includes a lab coat, face mask, gloves, and potentially a hairnet, depending on what type of evidence that I'm working with. And then the gloves are disposable, so they are changed before and after each item of evidence. It's also changed if I have to touch my computer to take notes, I change my gloves. If I have to touch another surface, I change my gloves. So it's a lot of procedures that we use in order to prevent my DNA from getting onto the item of evidence.
When DNA analysis is done, are instruments used to assist you in that process?
Yes, we have an instrument platform that we use that allows us to run the DNA in batches in a efficient manner. So there's multiple instruments that are used across the varying processes.
And do these instruments generate paperwork that humans such as yourself can then go read and interpret?
Yes, it does.
Now, in this particular case, you are not the analyst who examined the items. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you review the information that is generated by the instruments used by the analyst who did this work in coming to your own conclusions?
I was the technical reviewer on this file, so I reviewed all of the documentation and the paperwork and also the original analyst report.
All right. Now, one of the items that is said to have been analyzed was a DNA card. Are you familiar with what that is?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell the jury what that is?
Usually it's referred to as a DNA card or a blood stain card, and that's just a card where somebody can spot blood, usually human blood, on it and dry it down. Then the analyst can take a cutting of that stained area in order to generate a DNA profile.
And is that typically the manner in which a decedent or a dead person's DNA sample is provided to the lab for analysis?
Yes, that's a very common thing that we see in decedents.
And can you explain to the jury how it is an analyst such as yourself would take that blood stain on a portion of the DNA card and develop a DNA profile?
Yes, so it usually is blood stained on the card, so you can identify that stain visually, take a cutting of that stained area, and then place that cutting into a sterile tube, which is then sent through the DNA process. So that's adding chemicals and heat in order to break the cells open and release the DNA into the solution, and then running it through the rest of the procedures where we determine about how much DNA is in the sample, make millions of copies of our specific areas of interest, and then generate a DNA profile that can be used for comparison to any questioned items in the case.
Do you use some sort of commercial kit to develop DNA profiles on known items such as this?
Yes, we do.
Approximately how many locations back in 2020 would have been tested on this DNA card?
In 2020, it was 21 locations.
And in going through this process, is there a process that amplifies the amount of DNA?
Yes, there is.
Can you describe that?
Yes, so we need to amplify or make millions of copies of the specific areas of interest that we're looking for. We don't want to make copies of the entire DNA molecule. We're just wanting to isolate those specific 21 areas and make copies of those specific areas in order to generate the DNA profile that we use in forensic DNA analysis.
And do you know what a short tandem repeat is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
Short tandem repeat, we also call them STRs. That's just what we're looking for in the forensic DNA analysis. There are small, short areas of repeating DNA pieces. So for example, at somebody's DNA profile at a specific location, you can have a set of 16 repeats and a set of 17 repeats. And that's just this one little piece of DNA, and it repeats 16 times. and then you have a piece that repeats 17 times. And it's the number of repeats that is different from person to person.
And you said you might be a 16 at one spot and 17. Let's just be clear on what we're talking about. On one particular location, well, all of them, do you get DNA from mom and dad? Could you explain that?
Yes. So you get DNA from your parents. So it's inherited. You get half of your DNA from your mom and half from your dad. So when I'm talking about the short tandem repeats and the example of a 16 and a 17, that could mean that you got a set of 16 repeats from one parent and a set of 17 repeats from the other parent. So it's just the copies that you get from your parents.
And you might happen to have 16 from each.
Yes, that's also a possibility.
All right. And so the chemicals end up copying about, you said 21 areas in 2020?
Yes. So there's 21. And then we look at several areas that are on the gender marker. So it was 3 areas on the gender markers.
And each of these locations will come up with some sort of number like 16, 17, 4, 4, so on and so forth.
Yes, that's correct.
Were you able, in reviewing the instrumentation data in this case, was the DNA profile that was said to have come from Mr. Torres, was there able to be a full DNA profile at those 21 locations developed?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Now, can you tell us what a buccal or a buccal swab, sometimes people call it each, which way is the right way?
I usually use the word buccal, but buccal is not incorrect either.
All right, what is that?
It's just a swab that we can use as a reference sample from a person. So it looks, all of our swabs just kind of look like a long Q-tip with only one end. And then you just take that cotton tip end and rub it on the interior of your mouth to get a good DNA sample. You have a lot of cells on the inside of your mouth and a lot of saliva. So that's a good source to use for a known sample from a person.
And these long Q-tips, I believe, as you described, are they put into a box that is designed in a way so that the Q-tip doesn't touch the edges of the box?
Yes, I've seen it in boxes like that, but I have also seen it where they've been put back into the original paper packet container. So either method is fine.
And did the FDLE in this particular case, in the data that you reviewed, was there buccal swabs represented as being from the defendant, Sarah Boone?
Yes, there was.
And in the process that you've briefly described for the jury already, can you just tell us if it's different in any way to take a part of that cotton swab to develop a DNA profile than a piece of the DNA paper?
No, it's the same process. With the buccal swabs, I'm just taking a small cutting of the cotton area of the swab, placing it in a tube, and then running it through the exact same DNA process.
And was a full profile at the 21 locations able to be developed for the buccal swabs represented as being from Ms. Boone?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Were there also what we call unknown samples that were examined in this case?
Yes, there were.
And can you describe the difference between a known and an unknown sample for the jury?
Yes, a known sample is a sample from a specific person. So that's like the example of a buccal swab. I know that sample came from that individual, and I can use that as a way to determine that particular person's DNA profile. An unknown sample is just a sample where we don't know whose DNA or if there is any DNA on that sample at all. So those are question items that can be, once a DNA profile is obtained from that item, can be compared to the known profiles obtained from individuals.
And in this case, was there an unknown item labeled as DNA swabs representative coming from Mr. Torres's fingernails?
I believe it was fingernail clippings from Mr. Torres, yes.
All right, and
Let me pause. Lovejoy, don't come in here like that. Lovejoy said, "Hey, Donna and chat. I watched this trial today. She is done. I think her ex-husband's testimony and the suitcase video are so damaging to this case. Yup, she's done. This woman is a lunatic. She's completely, Angel, I see you, girl. She is a complete lunatic. She really thinks she's going to get through it. See, this is the problem with these type of people, these toxic people, these narcissists, sociopath, the whole cluster B personality disorder, all of them. They will not admit that they're wrong. They will not apologize. They're so stubborn. And the older they get, the more stubborn they are. You would think when they get old, you know what I mean, they'll relax in their ways and they'll change. No, it doesn't happen. It's something seriously wrong with their brain. But they think they're smarter than everybody. They think they're above everybody. I mean, you have this all on videotape. How the heck do you think you're going to get away with this? You know, and watch what's going to happen. This is all my thoughts and opinions. When she's found guilty, this heifer is going to go over here and blame it on her lawyer. Oh, I wasn't represented right. It was their fault. I mean, they didn't do me right. Because she's going to have to put the blame on somebody else because they do not accept their responsibility. They do not accept the fact that they was wrong. So she's going to have to shift it to somebody else. And unfortunately, it's going to be this lawyer. And I have to give this lawyer so much respect for him to go out here and represent her. I don't have no problem with the lawyer. I mean, he's doing the best that he can. He actually did a good job by coming out here and getting her that plea deal that she refused to take. Why? You love your son, right? You could have got out in 15 years. You already did a couple of years. I don't know. Maybe she could have got out with good behavior. She could probably been out like 5, 6, 8 years, and she could have been with her son. No, because it's all about her. Oh boy, let me get off my soapbox here a little bit. Okay. Ooh, a Trump girl says here. Of course she is evil. She thinks she is the smartest person in the room. And she will regret not taking that sweetheart plea deal. Exactly. Why she didn't take it, Trump girl? Why? No, you know, why don't you want to go home to your son?
No,
She's a nut.
because she has
That's
a
my co-host.
grandiose complex.
Yeah, that's one of the narcs.
Delusions of grandeur.
It's insane.
Maybe don't the 3 liters of wine seal the deal. Maybe she should have laid off the wine for a couple of days. She wouldn't be in the position she in today.
You heard her in the interrogation talking about, I will never drink again. I'm done. I'll never drink again.
Well, of course you ain't gonna drink again. You in prison. What you talking about? You in jail. Of course you ain't gonna be able to drink.
I can't. Let me read these comments real quick here, and that's here. And welcome everybody. Welcome. All right, what did you say? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. I think I'm gonna show that clip. So I'm just showing some of the clips for today. I'm not gonna show the whole thing. I'm not even gonna bother the interrogation because I think everybody already seen the interrogation. I don't know my NAR channel saw the interrogation. I might put it over there. Okay, and what Zach says here. Why do you think that she was offered a good deal in which would turn down? I don't understand. I don't get it either. Okay, what else Lovejoy said? She can't talk her way out of this one. No way. She should have taken the plea. She would have been out a lot sooner. Exactly. Idiot. All right, let's get back to it, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you everybody for coming in here. Thank you for engaging.
Typically, I know you didn't do the work on this particular case, but in reviewing the notes and in your experience, do these DNA samples from fingernail clippings come in as swabs, like a buccal swab?
So sometimes they can come in as swabs, but other times they come in as just fingernail clippings. So taking the clippers and just cutting off the ends of the fingernails. And then I've also seen it where they've been scraped using pointed sticks.
And so if there is a swab that came in represented as being from the fingernails, then that would go through the process of as you previously described for the buccal swabs.
Yes, that's correct.
And if it comes in as fingernails or scrapings, do you all have to make your own swabs?
Yes, that's correct.
And how would you go about doing that?
We have prepackaged swabs in our lab. We can then use some sterile deionized water and drip that onto the end of the cotton tip to make it a little bit moist so that it can pick up any DNA that is left on the item. And then we just swab the surface of the item, allow the swab to dry, and then cut it and place it into a tube for the DNA process. So we're just making our own swabs at that point.
And was there a profile obtained from what was represented as being a DNA sample from Mr. Torres' fingernail clippings?
Yes, there was.
And did it match either of the 2 known profiles that we've just discussed here this morning?
Yes, it did.
Which one?
Mr. Torres.
Were there any results indicating foreign DNA on this item?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Mr. Torres obtained from either set of fingernail clippings.
Likewise, was there something examined in this case represented to be swabs or DNA samples from Ms. Boone, the defendant's fingernails?
Yes, those were swabs that were sent represented as being from her fingernails.
And so just like the buccal swabs that come in as a Q-tip, and then you would test that in a similar manner?
Yes, that's correct.
Was a profile able to be developed from what was represented as being swabs from Ms. Boone's fingernails?
Yes, there was.
And did that profile match either of the 2 known profiles that we've been discussing this morning?
Yes, it did.
And whose was that?
Miss Boone's.
Now, in regards to both of these last items that we've talked about, the fingernail swabs from each Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone, is it expected that their profile would be developed from DNA swabs from their fingernails?
Yes, it is. All of those samples were represented as being from those particular individuals. So their DNA is expected to be on those items.
Was there any DNA foreign to Ms. Boone on those samples that were represented as coming from her fingernails?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Miss Boone obtained from either set of fingernail swabs.
Now, with this amplification process that you've described, is it PCR?
Yes, it is.
How sensitive is it when a sample is taken from an unknown area, such as fingernails?
The PCR process is pretty sensitive, and over the years, as the science has evolved and testing has changed, the process has become even more sensitive over the years.
And hypothetically, if two people are living together and are intimate partners, quite frankly, would you expect the intimate partner's DNA to show up on swabbings from their fingernails?
Yes, it's possible that their DNA would show up if they're in close contact with each other.
But in this particular case, after reviewing all of the instrumentation data, there was no DNA foreign to either of their fingernail clippers, both clippings or swabs from their fingernails, both Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone.
Yes, that's correct.
No other questions?
Any cross-examination?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Once you develop a profile, are you able to take that profile and compare it to other possible DNA on objects or items?
Well, if it's a DNA profile that is obtained from a questioned item, we can compare that to profiles from known individuals.
And in this case, an example of that, if an object from an unknown source, you could take that and compare it to a known profile. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you get a match with that comparison, what can you take from that?
Just that is the DNA profiles are the same.
So if it's an object, let's say like a bat, and there's a DNA profile that's obtained from the bat, and it matches a known profile, could you make the conclusion that that person touched or handled that bat from the known profile?
No, I can't. There's nothing in the testing that we do at FDLE that will allow me to determine how any DNA ended up on an object or how long it's been on that object.
Now, you said that in this case, what was sent for DNA comparison?
In this case, there was a bloodstain card or a DNA card represented as being from Mr. Torres, buccal swabs represented as being from Ms. Boone, fingernail clippings from both hands represented as being from Mr. Torres, and then fingernail swabs from both hands represented as being from Ms. Boone.
Those are the only items that were sent to your lab for comparison.
Those were the only items sent to the DNA lab, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Any redirect examination?
No redirection can be excused as far as the state is concerned.
Defense?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, you're excused. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
State, may call your next witness.
Janelle Watt.
Ma'am, good morning. If you could take a seat, state your name and spell it for the record, please.
First name is Janella, Junella. Last name is Wadden, UAD as in Delta, AN.
May it please the court?
You may proceed, sir.
Where do you work, ma'am?
I'm currently employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office here in Orlando, Florida.
What is Sheriff Mina currently having you do?
I'm currently, my current position is a digital forensic examiner.
And how long have you held that position?
I just hit 6 years.
And can you tell us about, we're going to break it down, education, training, and experience. Let's just talk about your education. What's your educational background prior to becoming a law enforcement officer? In particular, what is relevant to being a digital forensic examiner?
I actually started in crime scene investigations with the Sheriff's Office. So I have a bachelor's in forensic science through the University of Central Florida. Upon transferring over to our digital forensics unit, I became a certified computer forensic examiner through the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists.
That's IACIS?
ISIS, yes.
Can we call it ISIS?
Yes.
How do you say it?
IASIS.
IASIS. All right. I just want to shorten it for today.
Yes.
All right. So IASIS. Tell us about that program that you went through with IASIS to become a digital forensic examiner.
Yes, the beginning portion of it is in classroom training. It's normally only hosted in 2 different locations around the world, one being here in Orlando, the other one normally being somewhere over in Europe. They actually just expanded a 3rd location over in Australia. So again, the first 2 weeks are in classroom training, normally with over 300.
Yeah, Zach, I think it is gonna come up now because I only seen like some of it. I'm like kind of watching with y'all again over or whatever. I don't know what to say. I didn't see the whole thing. But I think it is because I think we all gonna see the that clip, the video of the suitcase. I believe we are. Okay. Reason. Let's get back to it.
Other students. And then the next 5 to 6 months are all a peer review type training where they give you problem sets on how to, it goes from basic education on computer forensics to how to recover data. Could be pictures, could be videos. You're not sure until you pass one step to move on to the next one to figure out what you're essentially what kind of questions you're going to get.
All right. Let's take a break from the education training experience for 1 second. On February 23rd, 2020, were you called out to a scene?
Yes.
Does that happen from time to time as a digital forensic examiner, as opposed to your previous duties like a CSI, which would always go to the scene?
Yes, as a digital forensic examiner, we are required to come out on scenes if requested.
May I approach the witness with E for identification?
You may.
Showing you E for identification, you recognize states E for identification?
Yes.
And how is it that you recognize that?
I recognize the front label or the portion filled out on the envelope with my handwriting, as well as evidence tape sealed, also initialed with my initials.
And the information on it includes like your case number and some of the other information you just answered?
Yes, case number, date of collection, and the item description.
And what is said to be contained inside of that envelope?
An Apple iPhone Model XS with a pink case.
All right, and if I am not incorrect, I believe there's 2 sets of evidence tape on that item.
Yes.
Can you tell us about each?
She had the pink case.
The first
Who had it?
set,
Did
which
Sarah
is the
have a
red
pink
tape
case?
here. Initially, when I collect, or sometimes when we receive.
What
Who
did you
had the
say,
pink
Jack?
case?
Oh my God, I was going to come. I must have missed that part. I'm sorry.
Yeah, is she talking about the Sarah Boone phone or her phone?
Oop, I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, she had a phone with a pink case.
Oh, well, then it has to be her. You talking about that she's holding in her hand now?
I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, it should be hers.
Is it Sarah Boone's phone? That's the question. Is it with a pink case?
Oh, good
Because
question.
knowing you gonna get on her case.
Those stuff. Good
Try to,
evening.
hey, she try to have your color case. You
Good
got a
evening.
whoop on her now.
Welcome. All right, resume. Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Hit her
Hit the
with a
like.
pink baseball bat.
She took a baseball bat to him, Jack. This woman is pure evil. Wow. All right, we're gonna resume here. I'm gonna get back to it here, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you everybody for coming in. Thank you for hitting the like, and thank you for engaging. And tomorrow on the NARC channel, well, no, I don't know what's tomorrow. Anybody knows if tomorrow she's gonna get on the stand? That's a big focus. I want to see her on the stand, and I also want to see her psychological evaluation. That's the main thing. All right. Michelle said something. What did Michelle say? They shared the one iPhone. Oh, okay. Thank you, Michelle, and blessings. Welcome. Okay. And I think that she's talking about that where the evidence came from. Oh, okay. All right. And Lovejoy said the same thing. Sarah's phone and Deb. All right. They answered your question. All right. Get back to it, ladies and gentlemen.
Items from crime scene investigators. The packaging necessarily doesn't have to be sealed, just because the phone might have to be kept charged on prior to us receiving the phone. So in this case, I did collect the item from the residence. I brought it back to our office. And then once I was done with my exam, it later gets sealed, again, with my initials and dates. And if there's a later on an evidence review, or somebody needs to review the item again, if we need to do an additional examination, the package might be reopened and then resealed again, hence the blue tape here at the bottom.
All right, other than the blue tape, is that item in the packaging substantially in the same condition when you were done examining what is said to be contained inside?
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
If you would, could you open up this package and without showing it to the jury at this point, see if you recognize what's inside of the envelope?
Yes, there's a phone with a pink case inside.
You recognize that as the item that you collected from the scene that you went to on February 23rd, 2020, and then later examined?
Yes.
All right. So this scene, February 23rd, 2020, where is this scene?
I believe it's 4740, or can I refer to my report for the address or the numerical?
If it would refresh your memory.
Yes.
Go ahead, and then when you're done refreshing your memory, let us know if your memory was refreshed.
Yes. The
Memory refreshed.
yes.
What is your answer?
4748 Franz. Not sure if I'm saying that correct. Court apartment number 3.
Now, I know you work for the sheriff's office in Orange County, but I still need to ask, is this in Orange County, Florida?
Yes.
All right. Now, you collected that.
Okay, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. So tomorrow is a possibility she'll be taking the stand. Okay. Yeah, I think they did say something like that. Okay. Resume.
Item. May I move E for identification and evidence at this time?
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as E will be received into evidence without objection. Estate 16.
Did you do anything with that item while you were on scene?
Yes.
What is it that you did with that item while you were on scene?
I was requested to come out. I was informed from the detectives that the user of the device gave consent for us to download her phone. So I responded out, and once I located the phone, I immediately started to extract the data from the phone.
All right. So now let's talk about what tools you used to do that. I assume there's some software involved with this process.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your familiarity and the training that you had in regards to using that software back in the time of February 2020?
Yes. One of the main tools that we use for data extraction is called Cellbrite. I did obtain, again, transitioning to our digital forensics unit, I obtained 2 certificates with Cellbrite, which is an operator certificate, knowing how to operate the hardware and the extraction software, as well as a certificate in their physical analyzer software, which is more used for the analysis part. So once we download the phone, we get a digital file, which to us is a lot of data, which humans, we can't read. So their software basically makes it more readable for us humans, which we can then generate a report in different formats for review. So in this case, we used Cellbrite. They actually started to develop software for cell phone companies. So if you remember back in the day when you went to go upgrade your phone and you had to go into a brick and mortar store, they actually had the software to help transfer your old data from your old phone and transfer it to your new phone, like your contacts, your pictures, your videos, a lot of the data that you didn't want to lose when upgrading your phone. But they are now a predominantly digital forensics company, and they provide the software that we use to extract data off of digital devices.
And is there any hardware involved to use this software?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, in this case, and especially at that time, we had 2 options. There was a portable tablet. In this case, I used you can still use a computer, and they have sister software that mirrors the exact same software that's on the portable tablet. So in this case, I had my call-out laptop with the extraction software installed on it. And just like you would connect your phone to, let's say, your computer to export photos or take photos off of your phone if you want to save them, we're doing essentially the exact same thing in the field where we're connecting it to our computer, and we're letting the software pull all that data or the contents off of that phone.
When you were told that you had Miss Boone's password to her phone device, do you do anything to try and make sure that the data cannot be manipulated or destroyed from the outside world?
Yes, it's standard protocol. Like once we receive a phone, hopefully somebody did it before it's handed to us. But again, if we're responding out to the scene or we're the only ones that are interacting with the phone, we for sure try to, if we are given a passcode, we try to confirm the passcode. And then the phone is immediately put into airplane mode, which will disconnect it from any outside network. And we also
I had to pause. Melanie, hey. All right, she said, good evening. And I can't skip it. For at least 3 years, we thought we were not going to have a long and wild trial. Instead, we are getting a short and orderly trial. Yeah, right? Something to think about, right? And good to see you, girl. Good to see you. All right, resume.
So try to ensure, because not always, once you place your phone into airplane mode, it doesn't always turn off your Bluetooth and or Wi-Fi connections. So we may go in and make sure that those settings are also disabled before we extract the data.
All right, take us through this extraction process. I understand that there are many different levels of information that you can get depending on a lot of things that you'll tell us about. Can you tell us the level of extraction we were able to do on site with this cellular phone device?
Yes, for this specific phone, we were trying to minimally get the user data. Again, the stuff that you guys can see when you're looking for your phone, your calls, your messages, your pictures, your videos. And in this case, that's the level of support that the on-scene software that we're able to use is able to download from the phone, especially with having a password or passcode.
All right, so I think we're all familiar with Windows. I think Mac has its own special iOS operating system as well. Can you tell us about the operating system that was on this particular cellular phone device?
Yes, Apple has its own operating system, iOS if you have an iPhone. And of course, even if you have Android or Apple, you're constantly getting notifications saying it's time to update your phone to the newest software. So in this case, it's an iPhone, so it's running their shortened version of iOS.
Can you also extract data that has been quote unquote deleted from the operating system? And can you just tell us all about it?
Yes, it is sometimes a possibility. It's not always guaranteed, but we sometimes have more advanced tools that can potentially pull that data from the device. And then later, once we get that download, we can put it into that software and normally will give us indications on whether or not data has been deleted.
And so if a particular photograph or a Word document or some sort of file has been deleted from the operating system, may it still remain on the phone device or computer device?
Yes.
It may still be locatable with your software tools.
That is the hope. Again, not always guaranteed, but again, that's why we're trying to go in there and look for that the data behind the scenes to see if we can recover those artifacts. Yes.
Did you later do another extraction of this phone device back in the office?
Yes.
And tell us if it is different in any way, how your software or hardware was different in doing it at the office.
Yes. In this case, we use again a more advanced tool, which is able to capture. The technical term is a full file system. So we're capturing that whole filing cabinet, you would say, of the data stored on the phone with, again, the probability to not only collect possibly deleted data, but also your systems information, application data, like your social media, messaging apps, everything aside from your normal user data, like your calls and messages and pictures and videos.
What level of capture, and if you answered it in that, I'm sorry, what level of capture were you able to do?
Again, in this case, I was able to do the full file system back at the office. On scene, the technical term is an advanced logical or logical extraction, again, which encompasses your generic user data on your phone.
And the level of extraction you did at the office, does that encompass data that is outside of the operating system or in unallocated space?
It can include that data, yes.
Now, what kind of information can be generated by this computer software tool that you used to make it presentable for humans such as yourself or the members of the jury to review?
Yeah, in the software, it will place the data in data categories. So it's organized. We can, if we just want to search between messages, we can go in the messages category. If we want to look at logs, like maybe data that your phone's recording, like locations, app activity, that's also presented in its own data category. And it also has the ability to put all that data in chronological order in what they refer to as a timeline. So we can also see all that ongoing data in the timeline section. And if we need to, we can either narrow down to a small scope of time, or if it's requested, we can give all the data all in that timeline to whoever wants to review it.
And for instance, if there's an entry on the timeline that says, April 1st, 2016, photograph ABC was taken. Are there separate folders that are generated by the software tool that has all the images, such as that still photograph, generated?
Yes, when we export it or generate like in a PDF version of that report, all that data is categorized in a PDF, but it also exports a copy of that same data, such as images and videos in separate subfolders. So if I just wanted to go look at the pictures from the phone directly, I could just go into that subfolder and just look at all thousands of images that might be exported from the phone.
And is there identifying information such as an IMEI that is generated by the software tool? And can you tell us what these things are?
Yes, the IMEI is one identifier that your cell phone has to help authenticate it to your cell phone network. It also is like a serial number unique to your phone. And in this case, our software is able to read and report all those device identifiers from your phone, including an IMEI.
And do you take actual photographs of the cellular phone device, like the exhibit we just put into evidence, to document it before or after you do the extraction?
Yes, just like in crime scene, cell phone digital evidence is essentially another form of evidence. So we always try to document the current state, condition, whether it's locked, unlocked, and if we, again, in this case, we were provided a passcode. So I normally like to photographically document the phone's identifiers or accounts that may be logged into the phone.
Prior to trial, were you asked to look at two different exhibits to see if they represented a portion of that timeline you described that can be put into the PDF report form, as well as some of the images and videos from this extraction that you performed on the device that's in evidence?
Yes.
May I approach?
You may.
What I'm showing you first is O for identification. Did you have an opportunity to review that this morning to make sure that the portion of the PDF and the images in a separate folder there were part of the extraction that you did on this device that we're talking about?
Yes.
And was that accurate?
Yes.
P for identification, is that another carve out of the PDF timeline as well as videos and photographs from that device?
Yes.
All right, this time the state will move O for identification into evidence and reserve on P.
With regard to states O.
No objection.
All right, what was pre-marked as states O will be received into evidence without objection as state 17.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Opening up the file labeled extraction. Guess we don't get that monitor. All right, so sorry about your neck. Looking at entry 31079, can we just go column through column and explain what we're looking at?
Yes, the first column normally is just an assigned number, just like a line item number for the report. Because again, this is an excerpt. There could be thousands and thousands of line items when you're looking at the entire timeline. So the far left-hand column is just a line item number, followed by again, the data category for whatever data you're looking at. In this case, there's a couple listed as application usage and then location data.
Let's talk about the column that has dates and times, and can you explain to us what UTC -5 means?
Yes. Another column, again, we're looking this at a timeline, so we want to know dates and times. So we'll include the date and time of the data that was recorded onto the phone. And this report was adjusted for our local Eastern Standard Time here in Orlando, Florida, so UTC -5.
And going up to the top line there, 31075, that indicates that there's a start time for the application com.apple.camera, and then going back to our original one, 31079, that's the end time. Can you tell us what that means?
Yes, so Apple is very good about recording activity on the directly from your device. When you open up a certain application, such as the camera, Apple is making note that you, in this case, it's indicating a start time. So you opened up your camera at 10:21:36 p.m. And then you stopped using it, maybe closed it out or stopped recording at 10:21:38 p.m.
And in this portion of the PDF timeline, there does not appear to have been any videos or photographs captured while the camera was open. Is that accurate?
Based on that excerpt, I don't see a recorded media file.
All right. In the surrounding entries, can we just talk about what I would unfairly probably call spam of locations. What is going on there?
Again, if there's usage, application usage, or you're just in a really good location, or your device is just set to record locations wherever you are, your phone is also recording that data as well. And in some cases, like again, your phone, if you have it set for your camera to record your location when you take a picture, again, like when you reopen that picture, it'll show you, hey, you were located at 2500 West Colonial Drive. That's that data that's being recorded in the background while you're using that application that might have that permission to record that data.
Can we just go column by column through the first entry here, 16498? What does instant messages mean?
That's referencing text messages.
Second column, outgoing.
I just wanted to say, tomorrow I will definitely be doing recap again in the evening time, especially if it's going to be, psychocerebral stand. That will just be the main focus. So feel free to come back tomorrow. You can just catch a replay, whatever you want to do. Just glad to have you here. All right, let's get back to it. After this, then I'll stop. We're just going to finish her off. Resume. I'm not going to bother showing the interrogation because I think everybody already seen that already. So that was, about the other half. I think after lunch they had the interrogation, something like that, or whatever. All right, resume.
Does that indicate there's an outgoing communication?
Yeah, so it'll reflect outgoing or incoming depending on the recipient or sender.
The next column, there's a 1. What does that mean?
That just might be like one entry, one message. I don't see the header for the column, so that one I'm not unsure of.
All right, and the date and time we've already explained. Let's talk about the from, paren owner, and then the participants. What does this all mean?
So the from section, again, if we're looking at the first row of data, it's indicative that it's a text message because the sender, it's listing the phone number being used to send that message. And then for iPhone devices specifically, if you're communicating with another Apple device, it may also list the phone number as well as your backup, which is your Apple ID. So if it can't transmit that message through your phone number, it might default to your iCloud account. And in this case, it's listing both.
All right, and if, for instance, the outgoing recipient or the incoming sender of the text message is in the contacts, would it show up with the person's name, such as Wancho?
Yes, our software will display your contact name as how you save it.
And if there's no contact name, it would just show the phone number?
Phone number or, again, Apple, your iCloud account.
Videos, 16499, capture time, what does that indicate?
So that is when the video, in this case, looks like a video, is captured on the device.
Let's specifically talk about entry 16520. Again, we've discussed that's an instant message and it's incoming rather than outgoing. So that means it came to this phone device.
Yes.
And over to the right of the date and time, which would have been 6:07 p.m., 30 seconds on Christmas 2019, it indicates that it's from a contact named Mo. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Then the contents speak for itself. Going down to 16522, an outgoing instant message at 11:31 p.m., 57 seconds on Christmas 2019. What is the content of that communication?
The content of the message is hide and seek, I shall.
Turning down to 17167, it's an instant message that indicates it's outgoing from this device on January 13th, 2020, 5:01 p.m., 41 seconds, and it's from what is the paren owner. Does that mean it's from the device?
Yes.
What's the content of that text message?
Sorry, what was the line item number?
17167.
And bless you and all of you too, I'll get rid of him.
Then the next three are also outgoing messages. What do they indicate as far as content?
Starting with 17168, then I'll be better, followed by 17169, ugh, and 17170, Torres.
Turning now to entry 31103, which is on page 49 of the 59-page PDF. Again, it looks like what we talked about before, the com.camera application gets opened up to be used at 11:12 p.m. 40 seconds. Is that what this data reflects?
Yes.
And then at entry 31107, a video that ends up being captured as IMG_1062.MOV begins at 11:12 p.m. 45 seconds on February 23rd, 2020. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then there does not seem to be any intervening closing of the camera application before we get to 31113.
In that portion, I don't see that information.
And then at 11:23 p.m. 03 seconds on February 23rd, 2020, in entry 31113, a second movie is generated by this device labeled IMG_1063.MOV.
Yes.
I'm going to continue publishing from this exhibit.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part with the suitcase. I thought it was before. Okay, so they showing it now. So sad. There's no way she's gonna get off. There's no way, but tell you, these personality disorders, they so stubborn, they think they know everything. And this is where it gets them. That's why we say about with narcs and sociopath, eventually they throw their own self under the bus. You don't have to do it for them. Eventually they will. All right, resume.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Stupid. That's my name. Don't wear it on.
I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah. Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Real ransom. Now you want to give me for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Real ransom.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you cheat on me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Fucking breathe, Sarah.
Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
Sarah.
For the record, that was IMG_1062.MOV, now publishing 1063, same respective file name.
I would like to know at this moment, what could you possibly be writing right now? Look at her. No remorse, no nothing. What could you be writing right now? Interesting. Oh, yes, Lovejoy, she does sound like she had a couple of bottles of wine. Wow, I don't, after hearing all of this is why I'm like, this woman is evil. Because the more I'm listening, you never cared about this man. Someone else's commentary I was watching, and they was breaking down the timeline about him, and it was really interesting. If everything is correct there, he really is a good guy. I think when he came here, I guess came to Florida or something like that. I think when he came here, he was broken. He was having problems. So, with his wife or whatever. I think his wife or child's mother, they had broke up, and I think he was broken. And see, this is what happened. This is what I be saying all the time. When you're dealing with these narcissists and sociopaths, when you're down and out and you're broken and going through something, they always seem to creep around the corner. And here she go. And he likes to drink. He's putting all his sorrows into the bottle. And here she comes. She loved to drink. Happy, sad, mad, whatever. Just give her a bottle. And so she used them. So that was her narcissist supply, was from him, was the drinking and just treating him like crap, letting out all her problems and dumped it on him. Wow. That's why it's important, ladies and gentlemen. You have to date smart, not thirsty, because this is what happens. And someone left a comment saying, like he's not all that innocent, which we know, because they did have their fights and stuff and everything. So I guess he probably not all that innocent, in certain things. But of course, not to die. Nobody's saying that. He didn't deserve that. And then the way she did it, it was like she was humiliating him. You was making fun of his size, his height, his size. Yeah, that's what you was doing. This is what these narcs do. They like to humiliate you. They find out your weakness and then they prey on it. See, she probably start off and said, "Oh, I like my men small. I like them short and all of that, right?" And then he felt comfortable, like, "Oh, she accept me for who I am." These are all my scenarios that I'm coming up with, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, my scenarios. And he felt comfortable with her. Then eventually, this is what they do, right? It's what the narcs do. After time go by, all of a sudden it's like, "Oh gosh, I wish I had a man who was a little taller because he could reach that top shelf to get something for me in the store." Now, where did that come from? You see, they throw little jabs at you, little jabs. I know you did. Humiliate him and everything. Put him in a suitcase like that and left him there. And what they said, I think they said she dropped him down the stairs too. Then when it, ooh, child. All right, let's get back to it. I just wanted to share my thoughts there. You humiliate this man. Used them, everything. And every time you call the cops, he always was like, "Babe, I love you, babe. Go back inside, babe." And it didn't mean nothing to you. Just like right now, it doesn't mean nothing to you that he's gone. Do you know that he was somebody's father? He has children. He's a son. He's a brother. That don't mean nothing to you, right? Well, they're going to give you special treatment in prison. Your cellmates. Resume.
Sir.
No other questions of this witness?
Any cross-examination?
Yeah, Lovejoy, she probably is right now. She probably is. Idiot.
I believe you stated on direct that you were called to the scene and you were asked to do your analysis out there. Is that correct?
At least a download.
What type of?
Yep, you're right. They were a deadly combination. When you're in a relationship, right, and you ever feel, and this is for men and women, okay, my channel's about for men and women and everything, right? And if you're in a relationship and you feel there's a point that you have to, when it's starting to get heated arguments and you feel like you want to raise your hand or you feel like you need to call the cops on the person because they're getting a little too much, a little extra, it's time to leave that relationship because it's only going to get worse. That's just the first stage. Then there's going to be a next stage. And eventually, when you stay in these kind of toxic relationship, what's going to happen is either someone dies or someone goes to jail, or both. Well, look right here. She's going to jail and then he died. You have to watch out for the signs. And then also to the ones that have children, because I always stress that when you have children, teach your kids about dating. Teach them about narcissists. Teach them about sociopaths. You have to teach them about this because they're going to bump up with these people in their life. So give them a head start to let them know, what to watch out for, who to be around, who not, the signs of a bad relationship, signs of a good relationship. You have to talk to them. They will listen. They will listen. Believe me, they will listen. And if they don't, well, hey, you can say, don't say I didn't tell you so. All right, resume.
What's this?
An Apple iPhone XS.
And how were you able to get into the phone, for lack of a better word?
I was provided with the phone's passcode.
With an Apple phone, without being given that passcode, are you able to get in an Apple phone?
Maybe not necessarily unlock the phone, even though that is an option through some of our advanced tools that is supported. But it can have the ability to download the phone even in a locked state and pull 85% of that data.
Is it a much easier process when you have the code?
It's quicker, yes.
And how were you provided that code?
I believe either through Detective Copsel or Connolly at the time, or I may have asked Miss Boone just to reconfirm the passcode.
And did she give you the passcode?
Yeah, somebody did, yes.
Now, on the first exhibit that went up, or when you're talking about the communications or the identifying factors of the phone, one of the things that were identified is dates and times. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. Also, you said it would tell you if the source was incoming or outgoing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you said it could identify either by phone number or name. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. On the examples that you gave us, who was the identifying name as to the outgoing on this phone?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Who was the identifying name for the outgoing text or calls on this phone?
I think in some of the line items that were shown above, it was just listed as a phone number.
Was there ever a name listed?
A physical name, possibly in other line items, but in this, and again, in those excerpts, it's just by phone number.
Okay. Did you ever see the name Brian Boone?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you see the name Brian Boone?
I believe in one of the iCloud or accounts that was logged into the phone, there was associated email address.
Taking that, was it any other place where you would see in a different name as to the outgoing, other than Brian Boone?
Again, there might have been other names listed in other portions of it. But again, those excerpts, it was just either by phone number or, again, with the Apple iPhone listing, the iCloud account.
Do you have a copy of the exhibit up there?
No, not on me.
Can we get that pulled up, please? Are you able to see that?
No, this monitor is not working.
May we approach?
Yes.
Good point. All I see is a spoiled child that no one ever stood up to. Yep. If people's watching this trial, she's actually being catered to. The nerve of her to ask for Pop-Tarts. Are you flipping kidding me? I couldn't believe this. I don't know. Is it different states? Are you able to do that? Yeah, okay. She gives entitlement with every breath. She needs to be right. Exactly. I know she was a piece of work when she was a child. A piece of work. See, she's sitting there like she feels entitled. And watch what's going to happen. She's going to shift it. She's going to blame these lawyers when she loses. She's going to blame it on them because she's not going to accept the fact that there's no way you can win this. They see the video. The video. And then the 911 call. He's purple. He's purple. All you was worried about, he's purple. Dr. Pepper. That's it. Wow. Did this to this man. You didn't just kill him. You humiliated him. You knew what you was doing. You thought it was funny. You're a bully. Yep, she is a piece of work. Just look at her. Her, Surat. Who's the other one? The other nut that represented himself and unalived his child's mother and oh gosh, I can't remember his name. But when I remember, I'll bring it back up. This woman has a whole team. I'm just okay. I have to pause for a second. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to pause. This woman has a whole team. Look how she's just being catered to. Look at the little smile. Look, I think a little smile was getting ready to come through. She has a whole team. Free. And she doesn't even appreciate it. She doesn't. Do you know people out here that's, going through court and everything, they was completely innocent, but unfortunately they have to go through this and they wish they can have representation like this. They wish they could. All her life she's been catered to. Oh well, this will be the last time, so let her have this one and kick out of here. I heard the state made sure to select jurors that have not seen the Really? Good luck with them finding that. You can tell these jurors whatever you want to, but when they go home, they can be on the phone talking to their sister, to their husband, to their coworker, or whoever they want, and talk about it. They can pull up they go right on Google. Let me see what's happening. Let me get some more information for this. So you know what? You're taking a chance. Yeah, they supposed to follow the rules, but nobody's gonna follow the rules, and you're gonna get caught. Nope, nobody gonna get caught. All right, what else Lovejoy says? I recall when I first saw the video, I was so shocked and couldn't believe how this could happen. So sad. I remember hearing it on the news, and I was like, woman put a boyfriend in a suitcase? And he was like, wow. But then I didn't hear anything else. And then, I heard later on with the trial and stuff. But, oh, boy. All right, let me finish. We're almost done here, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost done. We're going to finish this one. I'm not going to show the interrogation. No, because we already see interrogation, but I might on the NARC challenge show it later on this week. All right, resume.
So the attorneys are approaching the bench, discussing with the judge there some sort of a question over something. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but we have been listening to the digital forensic examiner, Janella Wadden, with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and she has been talking about the data that was extracted from Sarah Boone's cell phone, a iPhone XS with a pink case. She was kind of taking us through. We saw some of the text messages that the prosecutors had previously mentioned during their opening statements. Interesting to see a text from Christmas Day of 2019 that said, hide and seek, I shall. And then January 13th of 2020 saying, I'll get rid of him, then I'll be better. And then on February 23rd, we did just see those videos, cell phone videos from February 23rd, the night that George Torres died, showing the suitcase video that we have seen now many times, probably in the past few years. So we are still going through cross-examination right now of that digital forensic examiner from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. This is the third witness of the day now to testify. We first heard from the forensic pathologist from the medical examiner's office. Then we heard from a crime lab analyst from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And then now this digital forensic examiner as they enter into evidence those cell phone videos and texts.
Everybody that's here, if you haven't, please hit the like button. I appreciate it. Hit the like, hit the like. All right, back to it.
Ma'am, were you able to see that?
Yes.
There's a entry on 12/25/2019. Is that correct?
And are you referencing like the instant message row? Yes. Yes.
All right. Does it, as far as participants, what does that show you? What does it tell you?
So it's listing the owner in reference to we'll say the first phone number, 8684. It's referencing that phone number as well as the Gmail account or iCloud account associated with the phone, and then it's listing a physical name of Brian Boone.
Okay, so it's showing Brian Boone as being the owner of the phone. Is that correct?
For that phone number and or one of the participants in that message conversation.
Did you recall seeing any other name associated with that phone number other than Brian Boone?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
All right, when you did the analyst of this, and you would look for the participants and get that information, match it up with the phone number. Then in certain cases, they will show you the owner name because you said Apple is very detailed in some of their applications. So did you ever see another name associated with this account other than Brian Boone?
There was another iCloud account logged in on the physical phone.
Okay.
There was no name attached.
There was no name attached. Bless you. Now, when you're identifying these sources as being either outgoing or incoming sources, and is that basically telling you what device is being used?
No, it does. It's not indicative of a specific device other than we know outgoing. Obviously the source is the phone that we extracted that data from. In incoming messages, it does not let us know if the message was made through a Samsung Galaxy or another iPhone.
Okay. What identifying information do you get at that time?
In regards to receiving a message, in this case, or what's displayed there, it's going to give us the content of the message. It's going to give us the date and time that the message was sent or received. And again, like in your phone, it does depict either through a small notification arrows indicating ingoing or outgoing. So it's just displaying that version in text up there.
Okay. And then from there, it's basically telling you the number that it came from. Is that correct?
Yes, like in reference to that top row, it's saying that message came from that phone number. Again, the top line item, last 4 digits is 8684. And then it's also listing the message participants.
It's not telling you the person who sent the message, is it?
Correct. Just that it's originating from a phone number.
So if 2 people or more people had access to a phone, you wouldn't, from this information, you wouldn't be able to tell who actually sent the message on any given time. Is that correct?
No, I'm not a fly on the wall and I can't see who's physically typing out messages.
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions.
The redirect examination.
Other than just your subjective interpretation given the context of conversations.
Yes.
If photographs or videos were taken during these conversations, that could be indicative of who is behind the phone device as well.
Based on sound and visuals, it does help.
Thank you.
Can this witness be released?
As far as the state is concerned, yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, you're released. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
State, any other witnesses or evidence to call at this time?
Not for the morning presentation.
Okay, all right. Members of our jury, it is 12:21. At this point in time, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. I'm going to ask you to report back here at 2 o'clock at 12A, the Orange County Courthouse. I'm going to give you a similar instruction, same instruction I read to you last week. Jurors, you must not conduct any investigation on your own. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you are in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. You must not visit places mentioned in the trial or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any place discussed during the trial. Jurors do not watch local news or read local newspapers. Jurors must not have discussions of any sort with friends, family members, or even your fellow jurors about the case or the people and places involved. So do not let anyone make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face-to-face, you must not talk about this case by using an electronic device. You must not use phones, computers, or other electronic devices to communicate. Do not send or accept any messages related to this case or your jury service. Do not discuss this case or ask for advice by any means at all, including posting information on an internet website, chat room, or blog. With that, members of the jury, we'll be in recess. We'll see you back here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I thank you for your time. Y'all may be seated. Thank you. State, anything we do address before we adjourn for the lunch hour?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, just briefly, as far as the scheduling of events this afternoon, the next witness we would be intending on calling would be Detective Kopsel. Counsel, I apologize. Just the publication of the interviews in this case would be approximately 3 hours in length, not to mention any direct testimony and cross-examination testimony. So that's likely to take us beyond the 5 o'clock hour. I don't know if we can work late to accomplish it all.
I'm inclined to work late. It's just if they're on board with that.
Okay.
If we need to go after 5 o'clock due to that presentation, we can. How long do you anticipate going? You had to ballpark it.
I would think it would be 4 to 5 hours, depending on the length of the cross.
What about in your side of the ledger?
I think my direct exam questions will probably be 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
Your lap.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end here. I was just wanted to show, just clips of today, but I'll be back tomorrow. So if you want to, I'm welcome to come back tomorrow. So tomorrow I will be showing more, and hopefully she's on the stand. If she is, that's just the main focus. I'll be focused on her on the stand. This nutcase, oh boy. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for liking, thank you for sharing and all that good stuff, and stay tuned for some more. Let's have a moment of silence for Jorge Torres. A moment of silence. And remember, everyone, date smart, not thirsty, and also stay narc free.